Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for all my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And this is an opinion-based video channel where I try to open your eyes and ears up to some of the travails and tribulations that take place throughout our cities, our states, our country, and sometimes around the world. Well, we know that it's been heavy in the news with President Donald Trump and this issue with illegal immigrants and ICE and trying to detain as many illegal immigrants as possible. I'm not saying I'm for it or against it, but the migrant issue has been a real issue. We also know that last week Charlie Kirk was assassinated at a Utah university. So there has been a lot going on. But we got to remember that one of the biggest crises that we are having at an epidemic rate has been the drug issue, the opioid crisis or the drug crisis in America. I have never seen this many homeless people in many of our major cities, panhandling. The level of addiction is at an all-time high. It is decimating many of our young teenagers and folks in their early 20s. We literally have people walking around as zombies. So while we're worried about our borders with illegal immigrants, we also have to remember, and or human trafficking, we also have to remember that we have a real crisis with drug trafficking and making sure that our borders are safe from the influx of the number of illegal drugs that are entering our borders. We haven't talked about that in a while. You haven't heard about that on national news or in social media. So I wanted to bring up a situation that recently happened where there was one of the largest drug seizures ever that took place around our Texas border near Houston. And our U.S. government was able to seize over 300,000 kilograms of a chemical precursor for methamphetamines. That is huge. We've got several pillars that are destroying our moral and ethical fabric in America. Undiagnosed mental illness, the opioid crisis, homelessness, fatherless homes, gun violence, etc. But we have to remember the opioid crisis is right there. It is decimating an entire generation of folks. So let's see what our U.S. government has done in this one particular case. They say that the U.S. seizes 300,000 kilograms of meth precursor chemicals sent from China, destined for Mexico's Sinaloa drug cartel. So that's another issue, the Mexican drug cartel and the influx of drugs that are entering America and just destroying an entire segment of our country. The operation in Houston was the largest seizure of such chemicals ever by U.S. law enforcement. More than 300,000 kilograms of chemicals used to produce methamphetamine and intended for clandestine labs controlled by the Sinaloa drug cartel in Mexico were seized last week by agents with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's Homeland Security Investigation, HSI, at the Port of Houston, which was announced by U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Janine Ferris, and Acting Director Todd Lyons of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. This is the largest seizure of precursor chemicals used to manufacture meth in U.S. history, said U.S. Attorney Pirro. China was sending over 700,000 pounds on the high seas to the Sinaloa cartel before his office seized them. So there's supposed to be some relationship between China, Mexico, and then entering the U.S. with these illegal drugs. Because President Trump and security and Secretary Rubio declared the Sinaloa Cartel a foreign terrorist organization, we can now strike faster and hit harder. This marks the first time a seizure warrant was issued for material support for terrorism, said Acting Director Todd M. Lyons of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. After seizing these two shipments, Homeland Security Investigations International worked closely with foreign law enforcement partners to consolidate the shipments in Panama and bring them here to the port of Houston. He said, I can't thank all of our partners enough. So you got Homeland Security involved in this. You have ICE, which is Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So know those acronyms. It also says that these many barrels of precursor chemicals are directly linked to one of the most dangerous and deadly terrorist networks, the Sinaloa Cartel in Mexico. Is one of the most violent and brutal terrorist organizations in the world. They are responsible for countless deaths, devastation, and destruction of communities in the U.S. and abroad. As I say, this opioid crisis is a real issue. Drug usage and this drug crisis is not measured or galvanized based on zip code, race, color, poverty or wealth, city or county or state. So it's saying that the cartel is responsible for countless deaths, devastation, and destruction of communities in the U.S. and abroad, said Director of Field Operations Judd Murdoch of Customs and Border Protection in Houston. This represents one of the largest interdictions of its kind in history and highlights the critical role of collaboration and intel sharing in combating threats posed by drug trafficking organizations and terrorist groups. So human trafficking, drug trafficking, these are real issues that are taking place in our country and at our borders. The chemicals, which originated in and were sent from China, could have been used to produce nearly 190,000 kilos or kilograms of meth, worth about $569 million on the streets. If they had reached their intended destination, instead, agents seized 6 shipping containers of benzoyl alcohol, a solvent used in the manufacture of pharmaceuticals, weighing 164,880 kilograms, and 6 shipping containers of N-methyl formamide, which is another liquid organic solvent weighing 151,560 kilos. This is a lot of drugs and drug precursors that they seized. To put this in perspective of the impact of this seizure, in the fiscal year of 2024, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CPB, seized a total of 78,925 kilos of meth along the entire southwest border. In order to transport the chemicals from port to a secure HSI storage facility, it took 24 18-wheeler trucks to transport the sheer volume of precursor chemicals. That is how much, listen to those numbers, that is how much of these drug precursors to produce meth was seized. Hopefully that will put a dent in the Mexican cartel and the alleged allegations that this stuff is being made in China. If you're paying any attention to the news, as always with these drug manufacturers. China is being mentioned a lot, and of course, Mexico. In 2023, more than 34,800 Americans, listen to this statistic. In 2023, more than 34,800 Americans died of overdoses from psychostimulants, primarily meth. They're not even talking about heroin, fentanyl, or any of these other drugs. Just from meth alone, almost 35,000 people. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia obtained the seizure warrant that provided the legal authority to seize the chemicals. Because the administration designated the Sinaloa Cartel as a foreign terrorist organization on January 20th, 2025, the designation provided federal prosecutors in the district the authority to execute the seizure under the terrorism forfeiture provision. Joining in today's announcement were Special Agent in Charge Chad Plants of Homeland Security Investigations in Houston, Director of Field Operations Judd Murdoch of Customs and Border Protection in Houston, Acting Special Agent in Charge William Kimbell of the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA in Houston, and FBI Special Agent in Charge Douglas Williams of the Houston Field Office. The matter is being prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia as part of its cartel elimination effort, a collaboration between the office's National Security Sections, Threat Finance Unit, TFU, and the Violent Crime and Narcotics Trafficking Section, VCNT. This effort is also a part of the Attorney General's February 5th, 2025 directive calling for the total elimination of cartels and transnational criminal organizations by harnessing the services or the resources of the Department of Justice and empowering federal prosecutors throughout the country to work urgently with the Department of Homeland Security and other parts of the government toward the goal of eliminating these threats to the United States sovereignty. So Homeland Security, the FBI, they are very busy. Even the DEA in securing our borders, and hopefully we can reduce the amount of illegal narcotics and drugs that are entering our borders in our country. As I said, this drug and opioid epidemic is at an all-time high, and it is decimating our country, and it is destroying our youth in their teenage years, the early 20s. As I said, we are going to lose an entire generation of folks based on these deadly street drugs that are coming into our borders. And not only do we need to talk about illegal immigrants and securing our borders for human beings or human trafficking, but we also need to make sure that we secure our borders for drug trafficking and the entry of all of these drugs that are ending up landing on U.S. soil. Drug trafficking and issues and talks about this have been circulating for a very long time, going all the way back to when George Bush Sr. was the CIA director. And of course, there's been controversy and rumors about how crack cocaine entered LA and how that started. So this whole drug thing has been around for a long time, but the crack era decimated our country to a certain degree, and at least a generation of individuals. And now the stuff that's out here available to folks, whether it's meth, fentanyl, heroin, the drugs that are out here today are way more devastating and harmful to folks that are using these kinds of illegal substances, which does not just lead to a great high, but will definitely lead to death. There are way too many people. This drug crisis that we have is something that needs to be at the forefront of our administration, and families need to talk about this with their children at the dinner table, because we are being decimated and destroyed by this drug issue that's taking place in America today. Things need to change. Our ethical, moral point, or where we need to be, is going in the wrong direction. And the level of inhumanity, hopelessness, and helplessness, and even homelessness is going through the roof. These things need to be talked about. We need to hold our government accountable to making sure that these illegal substances are not entering our borders like the flow of a river. There needs to be a so-called dam put in place at our borders to make sure that much of these kinds of illegal substances do not reach our land in America. We need to keep America safe. Tell me what you think. This has been the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth.